On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Danielle Johnson to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Johnson bet on herself, leaving a successful 10-year legal career to pursue her passion, basketball, and mental performance training. As the owner of the Difference Performance Training, she's helping athletes reach their maximum potential. Her story will inspire you. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up wherever you are, whatever you happen to be doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast on Facebook as well at Survive and Thrive 8791, the podcast, or you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm in it for the likes and the follows at TDecora8791, as well as hitting me up on Facebook at Tim Decora. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or like button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to tell their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. Glad you could join us today. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning, featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, divorce, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. According to the internet, and the internet is always right, correct, Danielle?
Right.
Right. According to recent reports from the NALP, the National Association for Law Placement Foundation, around 18% of law firm associates leave their firms each year, meaning for every 100 associates, roughly 18 leave annually. This number has been trending down slightly from a high of 26% in 2021. Today, my guest is here to talk a little bit about leaving the legal work, and we'll get into that a little bit. So today, I welcome Danielle Johnson to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Raised in Madison, Wisconsin, Danielle is a proud Edgewood Crusader. After high school, Danielle would take her talents to McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota, where she would be a 4-year starter for the Scots. She graduated with a degree in economics with a double minor in legal studies and political science. Johnson would enter law school and graduate from the University of St. Thomas Law School. Because of her hustle and perseverance, she would garner many honors in the law business, such as Rising Star, Up and Coming, and One to Watch. Today, I'm so glad you could join us. Danielle Johnson, what is up?
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for that glowing introduction. Much appreciated.
Much appreciated. So we were talking before we were setting this thing up. It is the best time of year. It's tournament time, either in high school, and as of the recording today, we are in sectional week, the Sweet 16 for high school. College, we are in the almost the conference tournaments. And then Sunday, we'll have the brackets in hand and we'll be ready to fill those out. What's your favorite part of tournament time?
I just like March. I don't like winter at all. I'm always cold, but this is the only part of winter I like. Other than summer, March is one of my favorite months. There's so much basketball on, and you can just feel it's a whole different level. Anything can happen on any given night. The emotions and the amount of anxiety with games, you can feel it. It's really exciting. The adrenaline's rushing. So I just love March, every part about it. There's so much basketball going on. There's so many good games, so many upsets. And this year, I think the college women's tournament is going to be mind-blowing. So it's going to be a cool month.
Games mean so much more. You get these upsets, teams that aren't supposed to win, teams that are supposed to go all the way, somehow get bumped off. So it is kind of cool, the upsets. Your high school, Edgewood High School, won the state title last year for the second time, I believe. Do you still stay in touch with the program?
I sure do, actually. With the career change, I started doing training for the feeder program. So I train a lot of the girls that will be going into Edgewood High School, and we'll continue that throughout the summer and hopefully for a long time to come.
It's always nice to have somebody that's in the feeder program that was in the system way back when, that can not only stick their expertise into things, but you're also sticking your heart into it because that's where you went to school and your coach is still there. You played at the Division III college level. If you could have gotten a scholarship, and I'm not sure if you had gotten any looks at all for Division I or II, but what program, and you were a little bit at a loss at the beginning, but maybe that changed. What program what was your dream school, do you think?
Yeah, I was a little bit short, 5'6¾". I'd just say 5'7" because with shoes. I was a little bit short. If I could go anywhere, probably go play with Pat Summitt at Tennessee. She was iconic. Otherwise, UConn was pretty big back then. It's kind of hard to remember. I probably would have played for the Badgers too. Was it Jane Albright? Maybe it was a little after Jane.
Yeah, she was the one that brought some stardom to the program. I believe they made the NCAA tournament under her, and then they've cycled through a few coaches, but you said two of my favorite programs, UConn because of the players that they've had, and also Tennessee. I read Pat Summitt's book. She was magnificent at just coaching and being demanding and being hard. But then the one thing she could also do is she could just love the snot out of her players. So I think that's why they were always really, really good. Before we get to your story, I need to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Do you like cooking dinner?
I do. I love cooking. I just got into sourdough recently, so that's been fun.
All right, I'm going to put an order in for 2 loaves.
Gotcha.
With their great food and a drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere, people keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Wanakee, and Mount Horeb. Most communities in the Dane County area can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. Drum roll. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
I have. Actually, they just put one up in Wanakee not too long ago, a few years ago.
Yes. What is your favorite food?
I think they have an seared ahi tuna salad or something there. That was really good.
Tuna salad. I would recommend the Bomber's Special Pizza next time. I've been eating that since, I won't give the date or the year, but been eating that since I was about 16 years old. So
You had me at pizza.
on the podcast, our guests will follow the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like and what happened. In segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened and then get into what it's like now. And we also discuss, and we'll be discussing Danielle's suggestions for thriving. So what was it like before and what happened? I knew I said you grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, but technically you grew up in DeForest, a community just north of Madison. Tell us about your family first.
Yeah, I call it Madison area, so I think it's all inclusive. I grew up in DeForest. My dad still lives in the same house that he built, so that I was brought home from the hospital in. My brother, I have a little brother. He's 2 years, 2 days younger, which is wild. Yeah, little brother's been super instrumental in all of this, actually. With some of my vision, he actually created my logo, and I'm forever indebted to him. He's been really awesome. So shout out to you, Cody Johnson, BSN.
Cody Johnson, BSN.
Love you, bud.
Your parents decided to send you to Edgewood High School, a private school in Madison, Wisconsin, kind of close, just a little ways from the university. And it's, I always think of it as Edgewood, a preparatory college prep school. And I think it prepped you very well, considering the field you initially went in. Tell us about Edgewood.
Yeah, I think people, and this is one thing I say, don't judge me because I think people think, oh, a bunch of rich preppy kids. But I came from a very blue-collar family. I know that it was quite a lot for my parents to send me there. I'm grateful every day because it really prepared me for college, and I can sing that praise every day. And I'm not getting any money to say that right now. No. Mm-hmm. But it really did. When I stepped into McAllister, which is a premier academic college, it was just another day for me. I didn't struggle with a different workload. I did, however, struggle with that workload in my transition from 8th grade to freshman. I remember really struggling. My first day of freshman year at Edgewood, I came home and I remember crying because I had to know how I was going to finish all my homework. It was something really new for me. And my first progress reports came out. I had the first C in history. History was always my worst because I can't
The
remember
C word, C.
dates. Yeah. My mom thought I was messing around. I was like, no, Mom, it's really hard. And she soon realized that. I think she felt bad, but it really prepared me academically, but as a human too, on how to prepare, how to prioritize tasks and get them done. And I really didn't feel much of a difference going from there to McAllister College, other than, of course, different subjects and different levels in those subjects. But it was pretty easy for me to manage sports and school at the same time. Not unstressful, but I had done it before.
After a successful high school career where you starred in both basketball and soccer, what did you like about both of those sports? I know you and I have talked a little bit about which one you like. And obviously, it's basketball, but there's a reason why you played those sports. Tell us what you liked about both.
I just like competition. I need that healthy competition still to this day. And so soccer I played growing up. It's a really fun team sport and just enjoyed it. In high school, Chris Martinelli, I believe, is still the coach there. He was my coach. An amazing coach, just an amazing human. So I really enjoyed playing for him. He really understood, and he's got a couple state titles of himself for himself now. He really understood how to coach to each player, right? Like each player is different. You have to coach them differently. And I don't think I ever heard him really scream or belittle a player or make them feel less than. He was just an amazing coach, and I really loved playing for him. Even though soccer wasn't my number one, I really loved playing that sport. And then the adrenaline of being goalie, right? Last line of defense, you can't get really past that.
And then as far as the basketball goes, you kind of mentioned that already a little bit, but just the same thing.
Oh, I just love basketball. I don't know why I was drawn to basketball. I think it's physically demanding. Basketball is the one sport where you have to be good at every part of the game. I love to play volleyball now, but you could be a good hitter in volleyball and then sub out and not have to play defense that much, right? So like basketball, I think, is the one sport where you really have to be a good defender. You have to be a good on offense. You can't, there's no relaxing on either side. So maybe the challenge of being an athlete in that respect, an all-around.
And it's fast moving, changing, ever changing. After receiving some nice recognition in basketball, honor mention All-State, and playing in the state All-Star game, you take your talents to McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota. Did you have any other thoughts of going anywhere else besides McAllister?
I think I went on a couple of visits other places, but to me, when I learned how good of an academic school McAllister was and that I could also play there, I think that was the sealer.
I think when people look at Division III schools, they're looking at probably the college experience and the academic part first. Basketball, maybe 1.1. But yeah, since you're probably not going to go to the WNBA from the Division III level, you're there for school. After a successful 4-year basketball career where you start virtually every game, once you set foot on campus, you finish your career ranked in the top 15 scorers of all time. I think you're number 14. What did you love about the college game of basketball? It's being a little bit different, maybe a little more demanding, more fun, more loose, different coach. What was it?
Man, the MIAC was a tough conference. At St. Thomas, St. Ben's, it was Augsburg. It was a tough conference. Carleton, we had really, really good competition. It's a longer a longer court. So you've got just a little bit different of a game, different going from the smaller court, and then just the physical demands of the game going up and down. We had a small team when I walked in there. So we had like seven, eight players or something. Not a big bench, and playing all 40 minutes of those games, it was a lot.
Right after college, graduation, you start law school at the University of St. Thomas School of Law in Minneapolis, so you didn't go very far for law school. Did you consider going anywhere else?
I applied to some other schools. St. Thomas was the one I got into right away, and so that's what I went with. And as fate would have it, St. Thomas is probably the clear second up there, because after that, William Mitchell and Hamlin had to merge. So they've got really good net recognition. I thought about transferring back to Wisconsin. And at that time, when I told the dean of students was my one of my teachers. When I went to him and asked for a letter of rec, he gave me a scholarship to stay. So I didn't transfer back to Wisconsin. I stayed at St. Thomas, and very nice, very glad I did.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, you come back to Madison, where you're from, but turns out they gave you a little bit of dough. Pretty good move.
Yeah.
Way to play your cards.
Yeah.
After law school, you would start a career in legal work. What did you love about getting that law degree, passing the bar, and becoming essentially is it an attorney or a lawyer, or are they the same thing?
Same thing. Yep. Fun fact, at the end of, if you see JD at the end of their name, it stands for Juris Doctor, Doctorate of Law. That's Latin.
Yep.
That means that they have a law degree. If you see comma ESQ, Esquire, that means they passed the bar. I hope that's still right, but I think that's right.
Well, hopefully nobody fact checks us.
Right. Just the internet, it's got to be right?
So what did you love about the work? Was there something that you got into it and you were passionate about it? Because you did stay in, and I know we're kind of given some information ahead of time, about 10 years. Something had to be there.
And this is good. We can cover this later, touch back on this. When I remember looking back, and people ask, why'd you go to law school? I don't really know. The only thing I can think was one day in the car, I think I was
your mom
debating with my mom, and she said, my little litigator, always arguing or always debating. And for some reason that stuck, and I'd always kind of wanted to go to law school. In college, after that, and if it was a challenge, it was a challenge. And some of the work I was doing as a business corporate attorney in real estate was very useful in real life. I think I liked the challenge. I liked learning all of that. I also liked working with my clients, helping them through a difficult time, helping them navigate, learn the law, educate them, all of that.
And I think because of that helping and putting people first, that made this transition from this going from law from one court to another. I know we talked about that book of yours that you're going to be writing someday, how you went from one court to another court, but we're going to get into that. But because our listeners want to hear more about how this turns out, how you leave the law business and you go into basketball training, and the coping strategies you use, we got to talk about the sponsor one more time. Buck and Honey's has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning. With 4 locations in the Madison area, one is always near. People do ask me, why Buck and Honey's? Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honey's does. In 2024, Danielle Johnson, you decide to leave a career in law to pursue your true love and get into the world of basketball training. Danielle is going to take us through what the transition was like going from one court to another court in segment 2, and how she made the decision to change careers kind of early in your career. So please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365, and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. The podcast is where I feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. My guest today, Danielle Johnson, stated this on her website, and the website is, for more information about all the stuff she does, and the powerful impact she does with basketball. That website is thedifferencept.com, just how it sounds. Took this quote from there. It says, after over a decade in my career, it became clear to me that I might be destined for a different path. And had you been still a lawyer, you and I wouldn't have crossed paths. So I'm glad you chose what you chose. Segment 2, we get into a little bit of transition from the law work, legal work, to one court, to basketball training and a whole different court. So why did you think you were destined for a different career path at that time? After 10 years of being in legal work or law, why did you think you were destined for a different career?
So vulnerability alert, I was probably at the lowest point I had ever been at that point. I'd been battling burnout for a few years. Burnout really hit me around 2020. Like any good athlete.
Along with a lot of other people.
Like any good athlete and someone who had never really understood or experienced burnout, I thought I could push harder, just push through, right? Keep going.
And that was part of your success too in the legal field, as you were pushing through long hours and et cetera and working hard.
Yeah, for 10 years. And in 10 years, I had never taken 2 weeks vacation. I didn't feel with the billable hours that I was able to. I spent a lot of my evenings networking. So it was, it really hit. I didn't take that time, and then my body decided, I'm going to take it for you. And then at that point, I also experienced a traumatic personal situation on top of the burnout. At that point, it was more than my body was able to deal with, so my brain just kind of quit. It was really kind of scary. I had a hard time focusing, regulating my emotions, and then some days just even functioning. With professional help and education, I was able to get myself out of that traumatic situation. It was the end and then the aftermath of that situation, actually, where I learned my biggest lessons in life thus far, and it made me reevaluate. And it was in that reevaluation that I realized which environments or relationships served me and then which ones didn't. What I really liked about my career was the helping people piece. I liked when I got to connect with my clients and help them through a stressful situation, help them through a happy situation, help educate them, find out what their goals were in life, and help them work towards that. That was the piece that I really liked, that connection and that working with people. And then I thought, well, what is it that I don't like? The long hours, billable hours, that was really difficult.
Yeah, you were extremely successful in some of the legal work you did. I'm going to just run through some of these. You were the 2019 up-and-coming attorney, according to Wisconsin Law Journal. 2021 Class 40 under 40 in business. 2021 Rising Star. 2022 Rising Star. 2023 One to Watch, etc., etc. You talked about the positives. You talked about some of those negatives. And then the elephant in the room was always basketball. That was your first love, and you started to contemplate, what do I like? What do I love? What do I do well? And we talked about some of those things. You're a people person first. You like to help people. And then you kind of sprinkled in the love of the game. So what made you think this was the way to go?
Yeah, it was, so I would like to say that it was super easy and that I just thought of it right away. I used to be kind of embarrassed, I don't know why, to tell people that I was an attorney. I would never say that. I'd even say I went to grad school instead of law school. I don't know why, and I think back on that. And now I'm super excited. I tell people my favorite job is mental performance training and basketball training, and I'm super proud of that. So that was a really interesting piece. And the Sunday Scaries got to be a point where I didn't wake up enjoying it. And now my days are super long. They can be super long, but it fills my cup, and it's energizing. And I wake up happy and excited about my days. And I can honestly say, I'm truly happy, and I don't depend on anything or anyone else for that happiness. I kept going back to my childhood and what I enjoyed as a child. And it was basketball. I mean, my room was filled with basketball posters, pictures, trophies. I wore basketball clothes. I ate, slept, breathed basketball, right? That was my thing. So I started thinking, well, what if I did something with basketball? What would I do? I mean, a coach, I don't know, taking these parts that I liked about my job, thinking about the things I liked that filled me up, the passion that I had for a life's purpose. Also thinking about what kind of life I wanted to lead, what I could do with that. Also thinking about my struggles. So when I was a kid, I struggled with my emotions, which is not new to anyone. You know that. In hindsight, and through my introspective work as an adult, I come to know that this comes a lot from ADHD and being an empath. And I understand and regulate these emotions so much better now. But it took a lot of work, a lot of personal work. And I didn't have someone to help, I didn't have a coach or anybody to help me through those emotions. So this is when it kind of started to click. And it didn't take long, but I've noodled on this for a few weeks probably. So I was talking with a good friend of mine who I met him through another friend referral source, contact of mine in the lawyer world. Both of them are good friends now. He is a serial entrepreneur, really good at business. I respect him very much for his business acumen. They were clients at one point, became good friends, talking with him about it, telling him about it. And he's just like, and that's when I just made the decision. It was just done. He helped me find what certificate would be good to get for this career. So I signed up for the Neurolinguistic Programming NLP certificate class that day. It started in a couple weeks. 8 months later, I had my NLP certificate and my basketball trading certificate, and March 15th was the day I started my new business, and I'm excited to share that this has been an absolutely wonderful year as we come up on our 1-year anniversary.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned about why you think you needed to do this and some of the negatives. We maybe started to outweigh the positives and some of the mental health. You know that I'm in the mental health field, and I'm always looking for more who has got the new way to deal with mental health. What were you doing for your mental health during that time? Were you exercising? Were you meditating? Were you reading? What were you doing for your mental health? And you know what? It's also okay to say, you know what? I wasn't doing anything. I was just kind of floating around until I got some help from somebody, someone, a book. What were you doing anything for your mental health at that time?
When burnout started, I had dabbled with therapy before. Therapy is really difficult because, like any doctor, it's hard. I mean, you have to find someone that is good and fits for you. And therapy is really difficult. One, just to find someone who takes your insurance generally. And two, find someone that is experienced in what you need, and if you're not quite sure what you need. I had dabbled with therapy. I listened to podcasts, and personal growth was something that I'd always worked on with not as much direction probably. So when I hit the personal traumatic situation, that made me seek therapy again. And that was really helpful to get me through that situation. Health and fitness, that's always been a part of my life, and I think I'm grateful for that because that probably really helped balance me. If that wasn't there, I can't imagine what it would have been like. Health and fitness, working out and eating right and trying to sleep right were always a part of my regimen in life, and I'm thankful for that because I know that contributed to keep me probably healthier than what might have been had I not had that there. But this is where I really, in talking to our listeners, what is really important, therapy is really important, getting therapeutic help. The problem is finding a good therapist. When people are going through a difficult time, it's difficult. You go online, there's 1,000 different choices. You're not sure which ones take your insurance. You're not sure which ones are qualified to work with you in whatever you need. It's really hard for people. And I know there's people trying to make that easier, but that's one of the biggest problems, I think, for people who are really struggling to get the help that they need. But also I think the connotation in society that there's something wrong with going to therapy. Your foot hurts, you go to the doctor, right? You break your arm, you go to the doctor. If you're struggling with your mind, why do we think we should just sit at home and let it hurt? That connotation is hard. So, when people say I went to therapy, I think there's this, oh, she went to therapy, something's wrong. I don't know why we think that. It's the same thing as going to a doctor.
Yeah, some people poor substances or other things, or some people just don't do anything at all. I think you have to do something. Like you said, if there's something broken, we're going to go to the doctor right away. Why don't we do that same thing with our mental health? What are you doing now? This is where I think we combine the new Danielle, which was the lawyer in the legal work, and the old Danielle, which was one who had a passion for sports and a passion for basketball. And you combine those two and you've come up with although it's not new, a basketball trainer, but you come at it from a little bit different angle because you've got some of that mental health and that mental performance stuff in there. Tell us what you're doing now.
Do you mind if I back up real quick? I just wanted to share, I think this would be helpful for listeners who are struggling in a place and know that they're not happy with where they are, but don't know, they have this fear of getting to the next place. And so that's probably the hardest part. You know, for me, I had spent a decade building this career, this book of business. I had a pretty decent book of business, and I was really proud of that. And I had clients that I'd worked with for years that I absolutely enjoyed working with. It was the hardest thing was walking away from them, sending them emails to talk and telling them on the phone, like, I'm leaving. And that was really, really difficult. And it was just fear of the unknown, right? And for people who are unhappy with where they are and don't, but that's the norm, right? That's the day to day. And so leaving what's comfortable, even though it's not happy, is scary. So how do you do that? How do you do that? You really just have to take the leap. I paid a lot of money for that degree, but also financially, I didn't come from money. And with paying for a lot of money for that degree, a mortgage and a car payment on top of it, I didn't have a lot of reserves. So it's not like I had, and I didn't have a partner or anybody funding me at the time. So it was just me, or now it's just me. I was responsible for all of that. My parents are retired and it's fixed income. So it wasn't coming from them. I've always been a hard worker. I had a professor once call me fearless, which I thought was weird at the time, but I really appreciate now and I understand it. And I just took comfort in that I would figure it out. Serving, bartending, whatever it was to pay the bills, worst came to worst, but I'd figure it out as we went. And I can say that taking that leap and getting on that path of integrity with who you are and finding that life of purpose, things will start to fall into place. I was grinding so hard in this legal career, working so hard, trying to make it, trying to whatever it was. And by all intents and purposes, looking at my resume, it looks like I had, right? I just kept feeling doors kept getting shut in my face and it was difficult. I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like things are falling into place. And so what do I do now? So I work with athletes, not just basketball players, athletes of all types on mental performance. And I say mental performance. Is there some overlap with psychology? Yes. I don't have a psychology degree, so I'm not equipped to educate on that. But I do mental performance work. So I have the neuro-linguistic programming certificate. I network with a bunch of sports psychologists. I've read books upon books and educated myself to help athletes with the mental part of the game. And what does that mean? What is it? The reoccurring theme I've seen over the year from athletes, and it's every sport, confidence. Kids struggle with confidence. Where does that come from? A lot of different places. So confidence is, you've got to have the physical skills, right? So you have to practice because you can't just walk in without physical skills, but also the mental skills. And so working with athletes on appropriate goal setting. So setting goals for practices and goals for game. What is an appropriate goal? How many points I scored in a game, or did I beat somebody in a race, is not an appropriate goal because it's not controllable. So this is the time that I would like to get. That's a goal in a race. I would like to drive to the basket 3 times this game. That's a controllable goal, right? Things that you can control. And if you hit that, you reward yourself for that. It seems very simple, but an easy way to build confidence. And there's a lot of different tips and tricks. I'm just giving examples. But also these kids, just like the rest of us, these athletes like the rest of us, have a lot going on in their life. So sometimes I'm listening to things that are more life-driven, and we're talking about, okay, how did that make you feel? And where do you feel that? And what, So there's a lot going into a lot of that. It's also explaining to them how our brain works. When we were cave people, and this is oversimplified for all the psychologists out there, neurologists, I'm oversimplifying this for the crowd. This is how I explain it to literally 7 to 18 plus year olds, okay? But we had this reptilian part of our brain, and that was fight, flight, or freeze. We no longer get chased by saber-toothed tigers or dinosaurs, and we don't have those kind of threats, but we still have that piece of our brain, and it still operates the same way. So when we have some kind of outside stressor comes in, it hits that piece of our brain goes fight, flight, or freeze. Now we have this prefrontal cortex in the front that we've gained through evolution, and it allows us to think, to rationalize, to learn. We have to understand when we have these outside stressors coming in, be able to recognize what's happening and move to our prefrontal cortex, and instead of reacting in fight, flight, or freeze, reacting in a more educated, calm way. One really simple one is breathing. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. I ask my athletes, okay, what did you feel? I feel calmer. You're right, because you just reset your system. You just took that minute. We were able to breathe. Now get rid of the fight, flight, or freeze and think about, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's happening. How do I make a better decision out of this? So working through that. It also helps with a confidence from the standpoint, and this is where I get to combine the basketball training. I put kids in an immediate spot of failure, and I can watch that energy shift. And we can talk about, okay, what just happened there? What's going through your head? And typically it's I suck, I'm terrible, I can't do this. Why is it that your brain goes there right away? That's normal. Unfortunately, that's normal. Our brain tells us lies all the time. And so when I can break it down for them and I say, hey, when you started tying your shoes, that was hard, right? Yeah. Well, is that hard now? No. Do you think about tying your shoes now? No. I said, well, why is that? Well, I did it a lot. I said, exactly. I said, it's just science. When you start doing something for the first time, of course you're not going to be good at it. But it's that repetition over and over and over again. It goes to that automatic piece of your brain. Now you really don't think about it anymore. But you're going to be better on rep 10 than you were on rep 1. You're going to be better on rep 100 than you were on rep 10. And now you have a new baseline. So each time we practice, we increase that baseline of how much better we're going to get. So being able to explain this in a science way takes the emotion out of that game. So for me, being an emotional player, I have one athlete that I enjoy working with all my athletes. So I have one athlete who I think I really identify with because they struggle with some of the same things I struggled with. And I was able one day to explain, so when this player was playing and something bad happened, there was always a reaction. That reaction, although we don't see it, people from the outside see it. And explaining to that athlete things that maybe somebody hadn't verbalized to them before of what's going on inside of them, because I lived that, because I was that. And saying, I know that this is what the story is inside of you, but from the outside, that's not what's happening. And I was able to say, hey, when I was playing in Portland, Oregon, I had all these college coaches. Gina Ariema, Pat Summit, everybody was up. That was huge, the biggest stage I'd ever been on. So I was bringing up the ball as a point guard. I got stripped at half court. I said, how do you think the rest of that game went for me?
Probably not so good.
Message sent, right? Being able to teach, but to connect on a level from shared experiences is learn from me. I'm not reading this from a book. This is authentic. Like, this is real, and being able to share that and connect has been super helpful. And I think these athletes, and I'm not saying I'm doing the work for them, right? I'm giving them the tools, and they're putting in the hard work to do it for themselves. And it doesn't just change them as athletes. It doesn't just make them better at their sport. It makes them better people. It translates to every part of their life. They will now be better in relationships, better in jobs, better in friendships, wherever it is. It helps them understand how to help manage these emotions, and confidence. Just having self-confidence, self-worth is huge. And everybody comes from a different background. So some situations are more difficult than others, because when kids don't feel valued at home, that's really hard. But also I get to be that safe space for them and give them a place where maybe they do feel value. And that's the best I can do, right? So it is heavy some days, but a really good heavy. And I say I stand by these athletes. I feel what they feel. I have the same anxieties that they have. I'm with, like, when they tell me this, I I feel that with them and I stand with them. And I think having that and knowing that somebody is there for them is sometimes something they don't always get. So it's been a really awesome year. I feel like these kids have done an amazing job and they're so much better at it than we are as adults. If we can teach these kids as adolescents, as adults, our prefrontal cortex is already formed. So changing and being able to learn these things is much more difficult. Not that it can't be done, it's just more difficult. If we can teach these kids these life skills at a young age, their trajectory has just changed. They've changed their trajectory.
I really think what I just got from you, and I'd let you go because you were speaking with a lot of passion. And when I was thinking about back to the why has this transition been so smooth, and to me, for you, successful, you mentioned a couple of things, setting some goals. You left one business and started another business, and you obviously set some goals of where you wanted to be maybe a year later. You talked about that professor looking at you, hearing you talk in class, you're fearless. And you had probably had to have some of that fearlessness when you decided to leave probably a pretty decent paying job to start at ground zero. And look where you've been in a year, and then putting in some hard work. So you had a skill set already in place that I think if you would have went into becoming a chef, you would have been a great chef. If you would have went back into the business world, I think you would have been great at whatever you're doing. And just so happens that you have a passion for something that I do, which is I love basketball. Probably not enough to go back into training basketball players. I can see the success that you're having and cheer from the sidelines as you're doing your work. So very, very happy for you. This is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, pencils, and jot some of these things down. Here are Danielle's 5 suggestions that allowed her to survive and thrive a career change. After so much success in legal work, that transition to another line of work has been, in my mind, successful so far. I'm going to toss these in underhand style, just like softball, and you're going to go ahead and I'll say hit that. Just talk for, we'll say, let's go 2.5 minutes on each. And because you already touched on a lot of these things, so this is more of like a review. So here's what you shared with me earlier today. Number 1, find and build a life of purpose. And you've, I think, addressed that already, but let's just review that quick.
Yeah. So what does that mean for our listeners? And that's what you and I are here for today, is help. If somebody can learn from us, awesome. And that's why we share our stories and vulnerabilities. Purpose anxiety is real, right? Sitting here, if you're like, what's your purpose in life? That is fear-provoking. That is real. And it makes us kind of look at goals instead of processes. And we chase after visions that society or even our family. And I think about myself, that vision. Why was that my vision or was it somebody else's? And that chase after visions that society or family thinks are good for us. It fulfills their needs, but maybe not ours. And it doesn't maybe align with who we are. It happens because we don't focus on the actions in present and the future. We're focusing, and we have to focus on what lights us up. Instead, we look to this big, highfalutin purpose, right, of what we're going to do. And that's fear-provoking, and that stops us in our tracks. So we have to look at process-oriented instead of goal-oriented. And what does that mean? It is impossible to fail because there's a million things that you could do that light you up. So if you focus on all the little things that you could do that light you up, whether that's art, music, volunteering, hike, whatever it is that lights you up, focus on those little things, those processes. Don't go to the internet and see what other people's image of purpose is, right? So if we do that, whether we either fail, and that's going to put us back in a place where we're not going anywhere, right? Or we succeed, and then it still doesn't fill us up. And then what? It can be fleeting, but invest in things you enjoy in the process of doing those things. That takes up most of your time then. And then at the same time, stop doing things you don't really like doing. I know it sounds easy, but we are able to set those boundaries. At the end of think about it, your end of your life, what would you regret? And build your purpose around that so that you don't have those regrets. Go back to your childhood like I did. What did you enjoy? When we're kids, we don't really care about anything else. We lose track of time. So the things that light us up are so much more obvious. And those things still stay around, right? Think about things that you liked when you were a kid. Build your purpose around that. Say, if you can't think of any of these, say yes to things you don't normally do. Bunch of things. See what sticks. Throw spaghetti at the wall, and then get rid of things that don't.
I love that. Spaghetti against the wall. Number 2, and I like this, know when to leave. A couple examples here: the party, the job, the relationship. Set and enforce boundaries, and you just touched on that at number 1. So go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, I read this quote a really, really long time ago, and I thought it was kind of funny in different parts of my life. The party at first, right? Because we've all been in the college party or whatever it was. Know when to leave. I just thought it was funny. And then it kind of stuck with me through different phases. So I was somebody, in just my nature being who I am, I usually stayed too long because I had to make sure it was the right decision. But when I made my decision, I never looked back. Trust your gut. Get out now. Face your fear, whatever it is. I was told this and then I lived it. People are afraid it's going to be bad. Yeah, it probably will be. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I promise you, it will get better. People don't make the change for the fear of it's going to be worse than what I have now or what could happen. Those things might happen, and they probably will. Not going to sugarcoat any of it. It's going to be tough. It will get better, and then it's going to get way better. And you will thank yourself later for having done that.
Number 3, make therapy and self-care a regular practice. Go ahead and hit that.
The ability to be introspective and use that to learn and grow is essential. And as you mentioned, the physical health. So we've got the mental piece and we've got the physical piece. And like with the athletes, I always tell them, you've got a nutritionist, you've got a strength and conditioning coach, you've got a coach for games, you've got all of these. Why do we not have coaches for our mind, right? So the mind piece, but also the physical piece. So physical health is important. Make strength training, exercise, and movement a part of your daily life. You don't have to go and do hours and hours. I tell my athletes it's this too. All you have to give today is 40%, and that's all you gave. You gave 100%, didn't you? And that just changes we all have bad days. We all have days where we're tired. We all have those. So if today I'm feeling super tired, and I've done this for myself, fortunate I've built a small gym over the years, accumulated gym in my basement. I'll go lay down there and I'll put on music or show, and I'll just be like, just do this, or just go walk on the treadmill for, move, anything for a few, and we have that in winter here in Wisconsin. I think people struggle the most because going outside isn't always an option, but do something small, just move. And I guarantee you once you're there, you will decide to do at least one more thing. But set yourself small goals. Instead of saying, oh, I got this hour-long workout, just say, you know what, today I'm just going to do 50 crunches. And I guarantee you end up doing more, but make that a part of your daily life.
So you went to 3 and you went to 4 and you took 2 swings and you got it. So we're going to go right to then number 5. And when I saw this, I laughed. Laugh and be weird daily. Go ahead and hit that last one, number 5.
Laugh and be weird daily. I think we all try to come out and be this image of what society makes us believe we should be. I have really learned over the last how many years, especially the last year, that I super enjoy being around people I can just laugh and be weird with and be fun, and it's just more fun. And the more weird the person is, the more fun I think it is. It's a vulnerability, and they don't make you feel self-conscious about yourself. You're not thinking, oh, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Do I look weird today? And my mom always says this too, laugh. If you can laugh every day, it just makes you feel, and there's science behind that too, what laughing does to inside our body. And we don't need to go into that whole scientific
rabbit hole
lecture, right? Laugh and be weird daily. And you asked me what my motto is, right? And I love this because my mom gave this quote to me when I was younger. It's on a little, I don't know what you call a little board. Anyway, it said, shoot for the moon because even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. She gave it to me in high school. So shoot for the moon, go for this life of purpose, make that decision, leave that job, leave whatever it is, leave that career, leave the relationship, leave whatever it is, the party, whatever it is. If you're afraid, do things that make you afraid. Shoot for the moon because you probably will fail, and that's okay because you're going to end up probably where you're supposed to be in a life of purpose.
What a great episode. I'm so glad you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your journey from one successful career to another is kind of extraordinary. I'm sure it happens, but not many with your credentials can change to something completely different, but with the same skill set. you're able to survive and thrive. But that wasn't the case with you. You were a successful high school and college athlete, and the new career path is not all that surprising to me. Despite all that, you have survived and thrived. Our call to action, Danielle Johnson just shared her story and what it's like to leave one career and start a new. She went through a very tough time in her life and came through to start a new business in the mental performance and basketball training business. She also shared her 5 suggestions that helped her get through a stressful time in her life. That was in review. Number 1, find and build a life of purpose. Number 2, know when to leave the party, the job, the relationship, set and enforce boundaries. Number 3, make therapy and self-care a regular practice. And then she had a long list of things for number 4, along with your mental health and your physical health. Those are important. Make strength training, exercise, movement a part of your daily life, as well as eat properly, prioritize sleep, and get 7 to 8 hours of good sleep per night. And number 5, I thought this was kind of cool. I haven't heard this one before, but I've heard the laugh part, but laugh and be weird. So I like that. As we close with another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, are there any final thoughts, Danielle?
Thanks so much for having me and being at my table, Tim.
You would be at my table as well. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.